cannabis compounds show promising potential as anti-cancer agents, something that we've known now for quite some time. Again, great to see in the popular press that they're covering this important review. So compounds in marijuana, including THC and CBD, show promising potential as anti-cancer agents, according to a recent review of the scientific literature. The review, conducted by an international team of researchers, found several ways that the compounds in cannabis can affect cancer, including limiting growth and spread of tumors and other benefits. To complete the review, 9 researchers from universities in Pakistan, Portugal, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Romania, and South Korea. A very interesting list of countries there, and there's no Western or European countries at all, noticeably absent as us here in the United States, conducted a comprehensive search of several online databases for scientific literature that conducted the association between cannabis and cancer. The authors noted the search was focused on peer-reviewed articles, review articles, and clinical trials discussing the anti-cancer compounds, anti-cancer property of compounds found in cannabis, namely the cannabinoids. To be included in the review articles, the article had to be written in English or contain information on the mechanisms of action and clinical efficacy of cannabinoids in cancer. Through their analysis, which was published last month in a peer-reviewed journal called Discovery Oncology, the researchers determined that cannabinoids, including delta-9, THC, CBD, and cannabidiol, showed promising anti-cancer effects through a variety of different mechanisms. Cannabinoids, including delta-9, THC, CBD, and CBG, exhibit significant anti-cancer activities such as apoptosis induction. What apoptosis induction is, it's something called programmed cell death, and it has to do with when the cell basically needs to die and needs to be recycled. Autophagy stimulation, which is that recycling mechanism of taking dead cells and recycling them into materials that are basically used to make new cells. Cell cycle arrest. Cell cycle arrest happens in the shutting down of cell division. So what happens in cells is you originally start with one cell, then there's a process by which the nucleus splits into two and it makes two cells. That's called cell division, and so cell cycle arrest is basically shutting that down. Anti-proliferation, it's just a general term for the inhibition of letting cells proliferate. Proliferate means live and replicate and divide. Anti-angiogenesis, that's an area that I've actually done some research in, and that's the ability of cannabinoids to shut down the generation of new blood vessels being formed between the arterial system of veins and arteries that are in your body and tumors. So what tumors do is they reside in tissue adjacent to blood vessels, and they emit growth factors that emit or that start building new blood vessels. So if you can inhibit that, and that's a process called angiogenesis, that's something that's a very powerful way of stopping cancer. And the other is metastasis inhibition. So you've probably heard of tumor metastasis, and that's when a tumor in one part of your body can take hold in various parts of your body through the circulation of cancerous cells and cancer tissue throughout the body. So these are all things that cannabinoids can inhibit. Researchers wrote in the news source called Marijuana Moment, reported on Monday, clinical trials have demonstrated that cannabinoids have efficacy in tumor regression and health in improvement in palliative care. Well, we do know, again, that when patients are undergoing chemotherapy, which is basically running this whole cocktail of chemicals through their body to try to rid themselves of cancer, it does a lot of collateral damage, and cannabinoids could help your body repair itself and get back to homeostasis. We also know from research that I've done is that we found that cannabinoids inhibit the growth of glioblastoma tumors in mice, and that the hydrogenated cannabinoids that we patented actually had better efficacy in reducing those tumors in mice. So, yeah, a lot of active research going on in this area. While the researchers found ample evidence for the anti-cancer properties of cannabis, they noted it's not exactly clear what is driving these benefits. Despite the evident anti-cancer property of cannabinoids, from numerous experimental results, the review notes, the exact mechanisms of action still require extensive research. Researchers added, despite the positive outcome using cannabinoids in cancer therapy, there remain significant gaps in knowledge regarding their modes of action, effects on the tumor microenvironment, and the physiology of signaling the pathways they affect. The authors noted that the cannabis had often been used medicinally for centuries, particularly in Asian and South Asian countries, but they acknowledged that the researchers and clinicians today face challenges taking advantage of the medicinal properties of cannabis, including its well-known psychoactive effects, due to regulatory obstacles and a need for more research on optimal dosing. By expanding our understanding of cannabinoid mechanisms and their interactions with cancer cells, we can better harness their therapeutic potential in oncology, the researchers concluded. After reading the review, Benjamin Kaplan, an MD and specialist in cannabis and the author of the Doctor-Approved Cannabis Handbook, says that the science is really impressive. Kaplan explains in an email that highlights the review that cannabinoids like THC, CBD, and CBG show significant anti-cancer potential, including apoptosis inhibition, apoptosis activation, reduction of cell proliferation, inhibiting angiogenesis, and modulating the immune response. That last one's a pretty important thing because remember, part of the toxicity of COVID virus and other viruses in the body is that your immune system is on overdrive. And a lot of times when your immune system's on overdrive, there's a lot of collateral damage in the body. So again, cannabinoids help set that homeostasis, which puts your immune system in check. The review also illustrates the need for continued research into cannabinoids and cancer, including controlled randomized trials to develop standardized therapeutic protocols. In existing research, significant differences in effects are observed on concentration, cannabinoid type, and cancer type, Kaplan notes. For example, THC can have both inhibitory and stimulatory effects on breast cancer cell proliferation, depending on the receptor activation pathways. I did not know that. Dr. T, I want you to comment on that after my story. So cannabinoids interact with multiple pathways, sometimes leading to unintended pro-tumor effects. Again, not know that. This review suggests caution as these mechanisms are not fully understood and require further exploration. Indeed, the endocannabinoid system may play a pivotal role as one of the drivers in the physiology, but we don't have yet determined which elements to stimulate or inhibit based on its effects. So we've talked about this on High at 9 before. I know I've highlighted most notably the work by Manuel Guzman in Spain, who has published very important studies on the anti-cancer potential of cannabinoids. I think anecdotally we know that cancer patients can get relief from chemotherapy and other pains having to deal with trying to kick cancer, and depression that you often get. You hear that you have stage 4 cancer could just throw you into a whole tizzy. I'd be interested really in what Dr. T has to say, because some of these like pro-tumor effects, I was unaware of that. And if you have anything to add, or anybody on my esteemed panel, get out and see the Northern Lights. They're really cool. If you could do it on psychedelics, all the better. Enjoy. This is Dr. Mark from the shores of Lake Champlain here in the lovely state of Vermont. where the leaves are on fire.
Yeah, might stand up.
Yeah.
Can we see the Northern Lights from SoCal? I'm sorry, stupid question, but geography is not my best stuff. So.
Not this time.
There we go.
I think from
Dr.
Tahoe,
Last night we couldn't see him with the naked eye, but then if you set a camera up with a 10-second or longer exposure, you could totally see it.
But I want to see it.
Yeah, I think from Tahoe, I saw some pictures from Northern California where they were seeing them.
Oh, that's cool.
Do you want to hop in before we devolve into side banter here?
Yeah, I want to hear what Dr. T has to say.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't run across any tumor studies on THC or CBD, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was. Remember, the effect of the cannabinoids are biphasic. And so dosage really does matter. It could be that you're reducing your pain or worsening your pain, depending on what dose you take. And that's why our major research project is called the dosing project, because in the end, it's all about what dose you're taking. So figuring that out is really the key. We've known about cannabinoids and cancer for quite a while. I remember early rat studies, toxicity studies on rats, and it was preventing the rats from getting cancers that they normally get. What dose is good, we don't know, and that's why Rick Simpson, took some of that early information, and because they were toxicity studies, he used the high dose of THC or CBD, whatever was in the plant. And he proposed high dose is what you need to get rid of tumors. But in the end, I don't think we need to know exactly what the molecular activity is. It would be good to know, but I really think that's a play to develop pharma drugs. I think we need to know the dose and the efficacy, and we can do that through clinical trial, through observational.
Yeah, the one thing I'm always leery of, and I was thinking about this the other day because my parents are here visiting, is when you don't know drug interactions and you have patients who are already taking like a handful of Farmies a day, especially with CBD, right, John? We know that CBD impacts the way that drugs are metabolized in the liver. And even like those studies are done on patients that are just taking that drug, right? But we don't know like what happens. Like my dad takes like 5 different pills twice a day, washing it down with a Bud Light. It's like
yeah. Well, the difficulty with drug interaction is exactly that. Right. It's you can't tell, and plus everyone's different. People have different metabolisms, some people, and so really trying to predict interaction is difficult, which is why I support the notion of reducing your medicines, figuring a way to consolidate so you're not taking this cocktail of stuff and then one day you get a reaction that you don't know where it's coming from. So that's what I tell your dad, figure out, how can we reduce these medicines? Cannabis is great for reducing medicines because it takes care of so many things.
And that says that homeostasis, which is what the endocannabinoid system is, kind of like the way of regulating all the systems in our body where these drugs are acting on. Is that, just, again, a simple way of looking at it?
You mean the endocannabinoid system and homeostasis?
Well, yeah, that homeostasis held in place by the endocannabinoid system is the body's own pharmaceutical company, right? So it's
I would say to a chemist, I'd say it's the ultimate buffer, right? Buffers can take on acids and base and sort of keep the solution neutral. It's a great buffer. Is that a good chemical perspective?
Yeah, sure, that works. I used to have a chemistry professor, and in a British accent, he used to say, all questions in chemistry can be answered one of 3 ways: yes, no, and it depends on the pH.
I hear that. I like that. It depends on the pH.
Yeah, life is all about balance, right?
Yes. Exactly. Even in the
I see what you
chemical
did there,
world.
Rico. I see what you did there. I see exactly what you did there. All right, we got one more commercial to go. We're going to be right back.